So I'm here with Ross Haffenden today. I spoke to you, Ross, a couple of weeks ago. Had an absolutely really enjoyed the conversation. So just to introduce Ross, he's a highly experienced product delivery and manufacturing scale-up expert. And I was really intrigued by your background, Ross. A couple of reasons. One is you've got extensive experience in the scale-up industry, which is exactly the area that I sit in. Two other things that sort of piqued my curiosity. One was the experience in the sort of management consultancy over the last 4 years, but also your international experience as well. So I was really keen to sort of get your, thoughts on a couple of subjects. And incidentally, Ross, I really appreciate you making the time, to speak with me today. So just jump straight in, really. First question, easy for me to say, hopefully. I'm interested to see what your response is how do you move product scale up faster when you think it's impossible?
Yeah, this is a sort of a core question that especially been relevant over the last few years, Justin. And there's some particular example for a bit of context is in 2020 when we had the COVID pandemic, because of my background in manufacturing and my background in accelerated scale up, I was asked that within the work environment to work on various projects to do with the pandemic. The first one was the ventilator challenge. So this was a government program where government had realised that we would be short on ventilators, mechanical ventilators, and we needed to rapidly scale up the supply of those ventilators. So I worked right from the start on that project, and then for the next 2 years I was deeply embedded within the test program. So this was scale up of diagnostic instruments, companies that were only making one product a week. We were scaling them up to 300 products per week, and this is a regulated medical device. Working on the lateral flow devices, scale up, and also PCR kits as well. So real core background, and the sort of there were 5 key takeaways I think that I took that are really important for scale up. The first one is governance, and I know people talk about governance, it's governance, and it doesn't matter if it's one person in the company or if it's 1,000 people in the company. When you want to move quickly with scale up, you need to know where the governance is. Who is going to make the decisions, who is responsible, who is accountable. And if you can lay that out, it means it can move very quickly. One of the biggest problems and challenges in any scale up is who's going to sign that check, who's going to make that decision. And if you're waiting 2-3 days or weeks to find the right path, then obviously you're delaying your scale up. So what's really important at the start of any scale up challenge is to understand the governance and have the real clear who, how, and what are we doing. And again, this may sound like process, but it doesn't need to be like process. It's just that the team understand who is making the decisions, who's got authority to make that decision. The other one is team, and this is an obvious one. People, you've got to have a good team. But what I mean by team is when you're in an accelerated scale up, it's hard work. The team is coming together. They're going to be working long hours. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be failures. So it's really important as a leader to bring that team together so they understand each other personally. They need to understand the subtleties of the family life, the personal life, so that as a team you can infill. If there is a deadline, if there's a challenge, as a team, you've got to know that, it's okay to go for 3 or 4 hours because you've got personal things to take care of. As a team, we're going to take care of that. And that builds trust within the team. So it's not just having the skill sets and that's a sort of given, but it's that other element of bringing that personal side together of the team. The other one is objectives. So again, you've got to have good leadership. What is the objective of the scale up? But what I've really learned here is that it's okay to fail, but it's also it's okay. But if you're failing, you need to move on quickly, and you need to make those decisions quickly about that objective. And then communication and translation are the last two, and these are the most important ones for me. What I mean by translation is as a leader, I may be communicating with a CEO, an investor, a supplier, or operators, or commercial, financial. We're all on a single path. We're all moving in the same direction, but you have to translate the communication in, not in a different language, but they need to hear certain things about the project. There's no point in detailing in high technical level to maybe a financial officer. They just want to hear what's the impact on cash flow, what's the impact on our capex, etc. So you have to change the language. If you can bring all of those things together, the governance, the team, the objectives, these are the subtleties around moving really fast with product scale up that people don't think about. They think about the technology side to scaling up. They think about the supply chain, the end-to-end, the resilience. But in my experience over the last 4 years, especially moving through the emergency of COVID, these sort of subtleties have really helped accelerate scale up.
Yeah, really interesting, Ross. Like you say, a totally different view of the same problem. Yeah,
it is. It's a different view, and my industry background, taught me one thing, but my management consultancy, and particularly working in government and regulatory and diagnostics, we all know how slow diagnostic equipment can be to bring to market. But bringing that what does a regulator want to hear? They need to hear certain things. What does a developer want to hear? They have to hear certain things. So you can tune your message accordingly, and that brings people on board. Everyone's moving in the same direction, and it's a subtlety, but it really works.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Slightly different subject, but again, one that I know you're very well versed in is how do you prepare a company for that investment stage through the sort of eyes of technical due diligence?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and this one really interests me. And again, I think I'm unique on being on both sides of this question, in that I've been in industry where we've been seeking growth platforms and investment, and recently, obviously, in the consultancy side, I've been on the other side where we've been working with growth platforms and investors to understand a company and is it something that they should invest in. So one of the sort of the key things here is bringing that trust and openness. We walking into a company and where it's all closed doors, and they don't want to tell you because they believe it's IP, or you have to work with companies in order to understand that why we're here, or and what the aim of this is, that this process is, so that they become open and they trust you, and you can put certain different processes in place in order to get that, but that's really important, is to build that trust on both sides. I think one of the big errors that companies or targets make is that they put their pitch in almost in some cases, it's not arrogance, but it's confidence that we're going to tell them how brilliant we are and why we're brilliant. Whereas an investor will look at certain other elements of their company in a totally different way. And I think one of the key things is to give that balanced approach to the target. So it's try to think about what the investor wants. If the investor, if you're telling in your pitch deck that your product's going to last for 15 years, where is the evidence that it's going to last 15 years, and how credible is that evidence? And it's not just a bullet point in a presentation deck, because you can be sure that you've done all the concentration on the commercial deck, the figures, how much money you're going to make, profit. But a technical due diligence will go straight for the numbers. They will go straight for show me your testing, show me your evidence. So that's really important, is to be really careful and diligent about making sure that you have that technical know-how and that technical evidence in place. The other thing is costing. I've seen a lot of, in order to meet our investment goals, we need to bring a product down to a certain level of costing. And again, there is a level of assumptions that are made in the pricing, but you really need to think about how credible those assumptions are,
Understand.
and how you've made those assumptions. And it's once you start thinking like an investor rather than it's your company, your baby, you start to question, and therefore you can build the evidence, because you're not trying to disguise anything. All the investor is trying to look for is the evidence to prove what you're saying is the truth. And so you have to start thinking about this process from the investor's point of view, not internalize it. So and it goes all the way through, from resource to capex. It's all, think of it from they're going to need a return on their investment. They're going to need techno-economical modeling. Bring that all into the technical due diligence pitch beforehand, rather than them asking for it.
No, there's some great points there. I suspect that you're quite right, that they focus on the, if you like, the sales element of things rather than the technical, but the technical is where they're
absolutely.
So it's an interesting point,
and it's getting more when we start to look at the new technologies, not just in medical but in climate tech. A lot of these investors, they're not prepared just to take the word of the pitch deck. They want to see the evidence about battery technology or hydrogen or direct air capture. They want to know how it works and that you've done that. So your technical due diligence has to be as sound as your commercial due diligence.
Fantastic, good point. So as I said at the beginning, Ross, one of the things that intrigued me about you was the vast experience in startups. Then you went to what I'd probably call it the technology consultancy world. For one of the big consultancy firms, very well known. I'm keen to sort of get from you, what lessons did you learn during that time that you can now apply, or could be applied, into the startup world?
Again, I moved purposely into consultancy to get that sort of knowledge. I from my industry background, I had worked with consultancies and I'd employed consultancies to do help with scale up and help with the challenges of business transformation and strategy. So I was really keen to understand what it's like to work in those to get to this point that we're having this conversation, really, that I could reverse it and take it back into industry. I think one of the there's a lot of lessons, but I think key ones are for me, working in a consultancy that I've evidenced over the last few years is the ability to have cross sector and cross capability. In industry, when I was in firms, if it was a product, a consumer electronic product, our resource set and our skill set was very much focused on that product. That's great while things are moving smoothly and you're going, but as soon as you hit challenges and problems, the interesting thing about the consultancy element is that you can leverage into different sectors. So an issue with, say, a diagnostic piece of medical equipment may benefit from the understanding from the transport sector or fast moving consumer goods sector. That they've learned lessons in those areas that we could apply into different sectors. So bringing that cross capability into those groups, and it's not just about sectors, it's about capabilities. So electronics, design, some of the resources that you may not have in a scale up or a smaller company, you need to be prepared in order to get the views and seek views of other elements that are not in your company. And that may not be through a consultancy. It may just be by using industry, talking to other industry partners, or talking to friends, or talking to regulators to get that view. But I think one of the important things is don't be afraid to cross the barrier into a different sector than you're working in.
Good point.
And then I think that the biggest, I don't know if this is a lesson, but it is a definite takeaway that I would definitely move into any company that I was looking to work with, is the element of external reliance. What I've seen in a lot of startups that are trying to move fast is that they have an end goal and they use external resources in order to get to that end goal. But what they don't get is they don't get the journey in between.
Yeah.
And that is so important in making sure that whenever you're on a program of development to deliver a product, to deliver a scale up or a strategy, that you don't lose all of the learnings that you get in that journey to move to the end point. Because and that is one of the big risks of using consultancies, is you send the consultancy away to do a scope of work, they bring back the final result, but you don't get any of that knowledge or experience that happened in between. So that is definitely something that I would really focus on in any company, is making sure that we are internally reliant, making sure that we keep the knowledge internalized. No problem with using external, but we need to make sure that whatever is external, they're working with us, not away from us. That is a really important element of working that I've learned from moving from management consultancy back into industry.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, listen, I've really appreciated your time today, Ross. There's some, I think, some fascinating insights there. And I know for a fact that all three areas are pain points for most, if not all, founders of startups. So I'm sure they'll find that really interesting.
Fantastic. Well, I could talk forever on that.
So I could talk to you forever as well, Ross. But no, I appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.